This is the theme to the podcast. It's inspired by an old TV theme, one of the best I'd ever seen. So here it is, the theme to the podcast. What does Chris think?
About anti-drug conversations. If you spend any time listening to me, you know I don't always take the straightest path from point A to point B. My mind tends to work just a little sideways, pulling connections from weird corners of pop culture, trying to make sense of this mess that's usually right in front of us. And when it comes to talking to kids about drugs, most adults completely lose their minds. They either launch into a Sunday morning fire and brimstone sermon, or they channel their inner Matt Foley, thrashing around, screaming, yelling at them about living in a van down by the river, expecting the raw volume to substitute for actual wisdom. Kids see right through it. They know when they're being performed to. They know when someone's reading off a script written by a corporate committee or a school board that hasn't interacted with teenagers since like 1984. So we aren't doing that. Instead, I'm going to filter this entire heavy conversation through something I actually know a heck of a lot about: movies. Now, consider this your official, formal warning. If I'm going to make this work, I have to break down the narrative machinery. That means there's going to be some spoilers. Heavy ones. And honestly, if you haven't seen these films yet, I don't know what to tell you. They're all well over 20 years old. The statute of limitations on plot twists and spoilers has officially expired. To break down the reality of substance abuse without the moralizing fluff, we're going to look at 3 specific films that function as a sort of trilogy, an escalating staircase of consequences. Our first level, we have SLC Punk, made in 1998. We started this one because it's a film I have a tremendous amount of affection for. On the surface, it looks like a vibrant, chaotic mid-90s comedy about 2 blue-haired anarchists trying to burn down the establishment in the most conservative city in America, Salt Lake City, in 1985. It's funny, it's stylish, and James Marandino directs it with this chaotic, fourth-wall breaking energy that makes you feel like you're hanging out with the sharp, cynical friend who thinks he's got the whole world figured out. The story follows Steve-O, played brilliantly by Matthew Lillard, and his best friend, Heroin Bob, played by Michael Gorejan. Steve-O is educated, perceptive, furious at the status quo, and completely convinced that living a life of chaotic rebellion, drinking, fighting, and doing drugs is the only honest way to exist in a fake world. The brilliance of the film's character dynamics: Steve-O does every drug under the sun. He experiments, he pushes boundaries, he postures, but his right-hand man, Bob, ironically nicknamed Heroin Bob, is utterly terrified of needles and genuinely doesn't touch drugs. Bob is the grounded center to Steve-O's chaotic orbit. He's a good guy who just wants to hang out, love his girlfriend, and wear a mohawk. As the story moves along, you watch the absurdity of the young culture start to chip away at the wall of adulthood. The gang starts to drift, people grow up, sell out, or get beat down by the system dynamics they thought they could outrun. But at the climax of the film, it doesn't come from a dramatic police bust or a cartel shootout. It comes from an absolute senseless tragedy. Bob gets a bad case of sunburn. An acquaintance drops off a bottle of pills telling him they're just over-the-counter pain relievers or something. They're just going to take the edge off. Bob, who again never touches drugs, trusts the source, takes them, and turns out they were morphine pills. Combined with the alcohol already in his system, Heroin Bob dies. Steve walks in the next morning to wake his best friend up for a day of nothingness, only to find him cold. The takeaway here in SLC Punk doesn't preach that the world is evil. It shows that ignorance and blind trust are fatal. The moral at this level isn't never have fun. The moral is brutally practical. Know what you're taking, understand what you're putting into your body, and only trust verified sources. Casual ignorance can kill you just as fast as a 10-year addiction. Level 2. The choice at the edge. For this one, we're choosing Trainspotting from 1996. Punk shows you how easily an innocent bystander can be swept away by simple ignorance. Trainspotting takes you down into an engine room of an active, deliberate addiction. Danny Boyle's masterpiece is, without exaggeration, one of the finest films in the late 20th century. It's kinetic, visually stunning, darkly hilarious, and utterly unapologetic. It takes place in the bleak, economically depressed suburban hellscapes of Edinburgh, Scotland, focusing on a tight-knit squad of heroin addicts trying to navigate a world that offers them very little else. At the center of the orbit is Mark Renton, played incredibly with so much charisma by Ewan McGregor. Renton is smart, sharper than almost anyone around him. He sees the rat race of modern consumerism for the hollow trap it is. His famous opening monologue, choose life, choose a job, choose a career, choose a family. It isn't just a catchy pop culture moment. It's a scathing and perceptive critique of the shallow societal expectations. Renton looks at the standard menu of middle-class existence and says, "No, thank you. I'd rather be numb to it all." Around Renton are his friends, each illustrating a different pattern of human flaw. Sick boy, cynical, suave, obsessed with Sean Connery, and completely void of any moral compass. You got Spud, sweet, deeply well-meaning, but utterly helpless against his own impulses and lack of confidence. And then there's Tommy, the healthy, honest athlete who stays away from drugs until a heartbreak sends him down a spiral that ends in infection and death. And then there's Bagby, a terrifyingly hyper-violent alcoholic who doesn't use heroin, proving that the most dangerous drug in the room is often raw, unhinged rage. The film puts every single one of these characters through the absolute ringer. You watch the horrific stomach-churning consequences of their habits, lost children, disgusting withdrawal hallucinations, betrayal, prison, and death. It doesn't glorify the high, but explains why they chase it, which is why this movie works. It treats the audience like adults. By the end of the film, after a nerve-wracking drug deal in London, Renton makes a choice. He steals the cash stash from his toxic crew, sparing only just a little bit for Spud, and walks away into the morning sun. The takeaway here? Renton's final moment isn't a holy redemption arc. It's a pragmatic pivot. It's deeply human. No matter how far down the dark path you've stumbled, no matter how bad the mistakes are or how toxic your circle has become, there's always the option to pivot. You can choose a better path. You can choose life. It's hard. It requires burning bridges with bad influences. But the choice is always sitting right there waiting for you. You just have to make it. Now we're moving to level 3, and we're going to give you The Dark Mirror, or Requiem for a Dream from 2000. Brings us to the final tier, The Basement. Darren Aronofsky's Requiem for a Dream is a masterpiece that I respect immensely, love as a work of cinema, but I'll likely never watch again as long as I live. It's grueling, it's relentless, it's a piece of art. If Trainspotting leaves the window open at the end for a fresh breeze of air to blow through, Requiem slams the heavy iron door shut and welds it from the outside. It stands as a dark mirror to Trainspotting. Where Renton chose life, no one in Requiem makes that choice. They all surrender to their respective illusions. The film tracks 4 interconnected lives in Coney Island. Harry Goldfarb, played by Jared Leto, a handsome, hopeful young man who thinks he can use street-level heroin dealing to fund his bright future. There's Marion Silver, Harry's creative... Oh, she's played by Jennifer Connelly. It's Harry's creative, deeply loving girlfriend who dreams of opening a clothing shop. Then there's Tyrone, played by Marlon Wayans. It's Harry's loyal friend who just wants to escape the harshness of his upbringing and make his mother proud. And lastly is Sarah Goldfarb, Harry's lonely, widowed mother, living in a small apartment and obsessed with her television set, and dreaming of fitting back into a favorite red dress for a game show appearance. Aronofsky uses rapid-fire editing, extreme close-ups, and a Clint Mansell score to create a rhythmic, hypnotic pulse of addiction. And here's the critical pattern the film exposes. Addiction isn't just an illegal drug problem. Sarah Goldfarb gets hooked on prescription diet pills, amphetamines handed to her by a careless doctor in a suit. Her son is hooked on street heroin. Both are chasing the exact same thing, a temporary escape from a cold, quiet reality. As winter sets in, the film descends into an absolute nightmare of human decay. There are no heroic saves. There are no sudden realizations that fix everything. Harry's arm becomes grotesquely infected from needle use, eventually requiring an amputation. Tyrone ends up in a brutal, racially hostile southern prison system, broken and doing hard labor. And Marion completely sacrifices her dignity, trading her body in degrading sex parties just to secure a fix. And Sarah, in perhaps the most heartbreaking arc ever put on film, suffers a total nervous breakdown from amphetamine psychosis, ending up lobotomized and catatonic in a state hospital, dreaming in her mind of a shiny TV reality that will never come. None of them choose life. They choose the shadow. They let their desires for quick comfort override their perception of reality, and the machine of life ground them down to dust. Look, we can sit our kids down in a classroom and read them statistics off a laminated chart all day long. We can threaten them, we can preach to them from the pedestal, or try to terrify them with cartoonish propaganda. But kids aren't stupid. They notice patterns. The second they smell insincerity or realize an adult is just performing, they tune it out. They get rid of the message entirely, even if the core of the message might actually save their lives. When you look at these three films back to back, you see a pretty accurate, escalating account of how human vulnerability works. SLC Punk reminds us that casual ignorance can take you off the board before you even figure out who you are. You don't have to be a lifelong addict to make a single fatal mistake by blindly trusting an unknown source. In Trainspotting, it proves that even when you're knee-deep in the worst decisions of your life, you still hold the steering wheel. No matter how toxic your circle has become, or how far down the dark path you've stumbled, you can choose to step out of that car and pivot. And then Requiem for a Dream shows us that the logical end of completely surrendering to your cravings, it isn't romantic. It isn't cinematic. And there's no Hollywood ending waiting for you at the bottom. Life isn't scripted in a 3-act play where everything resolves neatly before the credits roll. It's long, it's complicated, and it's full of moments where you're going to be tempted to take the shortcut, to numb out, or to pretend the rules don't apply to you. The best advice I can give is pretty simple. Keep your head clear, know what you're putting into your body, and pay attention to the people you keep around you. Make the hard choices when they actually count. Choose to pivot when you feel lost. And know there's always somebody out there willing to help out. You just have to reach out. But for now, I'm Chris, and this is what I thought.